is not worth having if it does not include the freedom to make mistakes. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. That was a quote given by Mr. Ghandi. And it's a very interesting quote because in recent times I've been having many discussions with people and we've been talking about mistakes. And the issue that keeps coming up is, do we learn from our mistakes or do we learn from our successes? And Ghandi, of course, is talking about you have to have the freedom to make mistakes. And I'd like to share a true life story that has exactly to do with this freedom. Back in college, one of my closest friends was Alan. And Alan's uncle was a multi-millionaire. He was worth about $30 million, and this is in the 60s. So today that's over $100 million easily. He only had one son. And he never liked what his son did. His son could do no right. The son was, of course, wild and had a car, and he met a girl, and Papa didn't particularly like the girl. She didn't come from a wealthy family. She was a simple little girl. So Papa didn't like the girl. Papa didn't like how he lived. Papa didn't like what he did. So here the son of this very rich man, who was extremely controlling, they had this constant fight with each other. They were constantly at odds. And Papa said, this son needs to be in business, he needs to learn. So what does Dad do? Dad goes out and buys a business and puts his son into business for the purpose of teaching him how to run a business, which is an appropriate action under the circumstances. But then the father made his big mistake. What did he do? He sat on the son, telling him what to do, telling him how to do it, telling him when he's wrong. What happened is he didn't grant his son the right to make a mistake. And you can't learn anything if you aren't given the freedom of choice to decide whether to do A and to do B. And when you make a choice, you see whether it was a good choice or a bad choice. And when you're running a business, you never know whether your choice is right or wrong. So the proper way that successful business executives run is they make a decision. They always make a decision. They don't stay there and not do anything. Because if you do nothing, you go nowhere. So they have to make a decision to go A or B or stand still. And they always decide between A or B. They never stand still. And they move in a direction. And as they move in the direction, they analyze whether the direction seems to be right or wrong, and then they make adjustments. So if you're moving in the wrong direction, no big deal. You just switch courses. And then if you say, oh, this seems to be the right direction, you continue on the course. But what Papa did was Papa would jump in and tell the son when he was moving in the wrong direction and telling him what the right direction was. Now, is son ever going to learn how to run a business this way? No. So he never learned how to run a business because Papa always made decisions. So what happens? The son stops making decisions, because why make a decision if Papa's going to tell you all the time what to do? Consequently, Papa took over running the business. Why did he feel? He wanted to protect the $100,000 he invested in a business. $30 million this Papa's got, and he wasn't willing to lose $100,000 to give his son the freedom to learn how to run a business. Now, when I was a young kid, and I went into foreclosures, I left the family business, and I bought a foreclosure. I paid the miraculously expensive price of $17,000 for the house. I then fixed it up, put a new roof, did everything, rebuilt the house, and then I sold it. A week before escrow closed, the roof leaked. I had to replace the roof. That cost me an extra $1,500. And when I was all done, I had made the miraculous sum of $800 profit. I call up my father, and I'm depressed. And he says, "Why are you depressed?" I said, "I did this business venture, and I only paid $800. He says, "Well, how many foreclosures have you done?" He says, "This is my first one." He says, "That's wonderful." I says, "What are you talking about, Pop? What's wonderful about it?" He said, "Your first attempt at anything is where you learn it. You learn. That's your experiment. That's your on-the-job training. And you make your mistakes, and you learn your mistakes so that on the second deal, you don't make any mistakes, or you make minimal mistakes, and you make a profit on the second deal, and the third deal, and the fourth deal, and the fifth deal." So you go into any business with the idea that if you don't make money on the first deal, it's okay, because it's your education. And then he said, "But you made a profit, so any profit is great, so don't complain." And he was right. I went on to do, I don't know, 100 foreclosures, somewhere between 100 and 150 foreclosures. And I made a lot of money doing all these foreclosures. But I sure learned a lot on that first one. One of them was, see if the roof leaks. But going back to the son of the multimillionaire, he never got to learn how to make a mistake. So he never had the freedom to make a mistake, only to be right 100% of his time. So he finally won at something. He decided he would quit and give up, and he died. And the wife had no son, the grandfather had no son, the father had no son, and his son, which was Grandpa's grandson, finally took over the whole family, the whole inheritance, the whole everything. And he learned how to make a mistake. Madam Toastmaster.
Our second speaker today is